I'm going to be doing it from not a different perspective, but adding a little bit to it for us adults. Because, yeah, this passage is often read as though, and rightfully so, that we need to come to the kingdom of God like children. That's kind of the example. But there are a couple things that we can learn about kids and learn about our interactions with them as adults that I think are helpful from this passage. As I read it, a couple of things occurred to me about things that I struggle with. The first one being that, and this everybody in the room is going to know this is true for them as well. But I struggle with not teaching my kids the same prejudices that I have. We all have some prejudices. They can manifest in different ways, but we all are sort of just like standoffish or kind of against something. I mean, for me, it's I really try hard to make Carmen a Browns fan, right? But try as I might, he is swaying towards the dark side. I know, Odell, we need to lay hands on that kid for real, because the Steeler Nation cannot happen in my house. But really, I mean, that's a minor example. But really, we all have some insidious prejudices that we may not even realize. But I personally struggle with not teaching my kids those same things. I remember my mom; she struggled with that with me. Another little bit about me is that I went to a primarily African American school. I went to Cleveland School of the Arts, which was a special artsy music, dance, drama school, and 99% of the student body were black children. And so I was the minority in that school, which I thought was great. I didn't even know any better. That is in part a testament to my mother trying so hard not to let her racist roots, which were deep, run through me. And I think, I didn't realize it at the time, but as I got older and I looked back and I started realizing the kind of heart my mom had about race, I realized, wow, she never let that bleed into me. And, I can say a lot of bad things about my mom. I did not have a great relationship with her, but boy, did she do right by me with that. I mean, she did great with that. And honestly, I can't imagine how hard that was for her. Can't imagine how hard that was. But I struggle with things like that, not teaching my son the same prejudices I have. I also sometimes, and I think Angela and I are in this together, we confuse being in the same space as spending time. We confuse being in the same space as spending time. Right? Proximity is good enough, sort of thing. And the other thing, last thing I struggle with is juggling the responsibilities that others place on me with my call to be a dad, or a parent. You could just say that you're struggling. I struggle with the time asked of me for lots of different things, not just my job, but just other things as well. And they take that away from my time with my kids, and I let that happen. I let that happen. So I struggle with trying to find a balance there. Like I said, I think we all struggle with some of these things more than others, but we're all very, very proud when our kid likes the thing we like. We almost wear it as a badge of honor. I did good because my kid likes the thing I like. I mean, I know that if Wilson likes the Steelers, Mark's going to be all like, yeah, but see, there you go. If he did, though, and see, the look on your face just now was perfect. He's like, no, he doesn't. I'm so disappointed in you. My kid's a failure. Right? That's kind of the look. You're like, I don't know what I did wrong. We take it almost as part of our own identity when our kid likes something we do. Or then we feel like a failure if they don't, right? We want, and this is so true of mine, we want them to be seen and not heard. We really struggle, and I know every one of us in here who has a child at some point, probably more often than we'd like to admit, just has this mentality of please, quiet. Please be quiet. You're beautiful. I love you, but you're prettier when you don't talk. That kind of thing. I know all of us, especially in this world that we live in today, we struggle with providing a life for them. We struggle with providing a life for them in a way that doesn't force us to not live life with them. Again, it goes back to the time thing. Like we struggle to give our time elsewhere in a way that also allows us to give time to our family. And a lot of us are workaholics. We're sort of conditioned from birth these days to be producers, to be workaholics in our culture. It's, in fact, it is looked on as something good. If you basically kill yourself for your job, you're doing it right. And if you don't, if you take time for other things, you're a drain on society. People look at you, you're lazy, you don't blah, 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 So it's hard, but, Sean read a little bit of that passage, but here's the passage from Mark. It says, when the crowd gathered again, the people brought their children to see Jesus, hoping that he might grant them his blessing through his touch. His disciples turned them away, but when Jesus saw this, I love this, he was incensed. He wasn't just a little bit perturbed. He was really mad. And so he says to his disciples, let the children come to me, and don't ever stand in their way, for this is what the kingdom of God is all about. Truly, anyone who doesn't accept the kingdom of God, as a little child does, can never enter it. Jesus gathered the children in his arms, and he laid his hands on them to bless them. So I've read that passage at least a dozen times this week. At least, probably more than that. And every time I read it, I just sit there and I marinate in it for a little while. And I came up with a couple of ideas that were either directly in the passage or something that was spurred in my thinking because of the passage. And they dealt with those areas of struggle that I just mentioned. And so the first thing that came to me was this remembrance. It's something I knew, but a remembrance that children know love from the start. Love is born into kids. Trust and love is born into children. We may be the most physically underdeveloped species on the planet at birth, but emotionally, we've got something that the other species don't. And that is innate love born in us. Children have to be taught cynicism, suspicion, hate. It goes right back with my struggle about not teaching my kid the prejudices I have. Right? We're born with love inside of us. We are shown those other things. Remember when I preached about love pre-exists? It is nowhere truer than in the birth of a baby. By the way, if Vicky's watching, I said birth. Vicky, side note. Let's take it to the side. Pastor Vicky, most of you have seen her because she's come over here and preached a few times. She gives me a list every morning, every Sunday morning, of things I'm not allowed to talk about. Because just like you, she's not quite sure what might come out of my mouth. Today's list was only, don't talk about birth or the birthing process. Don't worry, I'm not going that far. But seriously, love pre-existing unlove is nowhere truer than when a baby is born. Right? Something has to get in the way of that love. For us to hate, for us to be suspicious, for us to feel uncomfortable. Something gets in the way of that. We're taught that. And who are we taught it by? We're taught it by our parents. We're taught it by our friends. We're taught it by a bunch of other people who are influenced by their parents and their friends. So as much as we want to hold on to the purity and innocence of our children, just remember, they are being influenced and taught by people that we've never met. The friends and family of their friends and family of their friends and family. It's the connectedness of the world, but children know love from the start. And I can see in this picture of this passage, the disciples and Jesus are there, and all these people come with all their kids, and they want to, and the kids are excited. They've heard these stories about this man who's doing all these crazy things, and they're like, I could just imagine if I told Carmen we were going to go see a guy who is doing all these miracles, and that if he touches you, you're going to be blessed. He would be bouncing off the walls until we got there. Super excited, right? But what happens? When they get there, the disciples are like, nope. No. We didn't. Did they wash their hands? Which one of these has hand, foot, and mouth? They're like, no, we're not doing it. And so now this excitement is kind of squashed, right? It's kind of squashed. The children learned that. They learned that. They didn't come up there apprehensive. They came up there excited. They learned it. But children know love from the start. The other thing was that, and this one was hard for me, but there's no replacement for physical touch. A couple of times in this passage, they mentioned touch. The people brought their children so Jesus could bless them, lay his hands on them and bless them. And then at the end it says that Jesus placed his hands on them and touched. We live in a world where a lot of us don't like to be touched. We don't like people touching our kids. We don't like people touching us. We have an aversion to touching, and you want to know why I think that is? I think it's because touch is so intimate. It is so deep. And I read something a while back that said, there's scientific proof that a hug has a physiological effect on our bodies and on our mental state. They've proven this, okay? However, it takes 6 seconds of a hug. Can I have a volunteer, please? This is going to get uncomfortable. Come on. 6 seconds of a hug to get the endorphin rush. 6 seconds. Now, you're like, 6 seconds doesn't seem very long. I'm going to time it. And imagine if you gave everyone a hug like this. First of all, did you feel the change near the end of that hug? I can tell you did. Yeah. Well, we don't hug people like that. We give them this. We give them this one. This is my favorite one. You lean in, right? Make room for Jesus kind of hug. Thank you. Yeah. We're done. Yeah. I'll stop manhandling you. We're done. Touch is that was awesome. Like I felt tingling near the end of it. 6 seconds.
I felt extra warm.
Well, I'm full of hot air, so it's okay. But 6 seconds. 6 seconds to get the real effect of it. At least 6 seconds, and we don't do that. So we don't like people touching us. We just don't do it, right? But Jesus here, even the Bible, and this isn't the only place, many of Jesus' miracles happen through touch. And there's a reason for that. It's because touch is deeply important to the human experience. If we do not touch, we cannot feel love. We do not feel love. Or at least our love is muted. It's a sense of love that is not full. It is not fully experienced. And that is why when we have physical violence or other acts of physical accostement, rape, when things like that happen, it's why these things kill us inside. Because it is a violation of the thing that makes us most human, and that is feeling the fullness of love through touch. It's violated that. Jesus here reminds us in this that there is no replacement for the parent-child dynamic or for the adult-child dynamic than physical touch. There's no replacement for that. Proximity is not enough. At some point, you gotta touch him. And you gotta touch him like you mean it, with the love, that deep love. And the parents, you know this. So this is why when you hold a baby, oftentimes that's enough to calm. Now, not all the time. If there's something more wrong, then maybe not. But there are only a few physical needs that a baby needs to be content: eating and being held. Those are the two base things that humans need, right? And one of them is physical, and the other one connects emotionally, and that's the touch. The last one is that something's always going to try and take your time. Something is always going to try and take your time. Jesus, though, every time they talk about kids in the Bible with Jesus, he's never too busy for the kids. He's never too busy for the kids. I see that a lot in this church, actually, where there are people who don't even need to be here because their kids aren't a part of whatever, and they are. Right? That's awesome. That is awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm not saying that the kids take all of your time, because that would be silly. I've said it before that I have to develop the relationship with my wife over the years because someday my kids are going to be gone. And then if I haven't talked to her in 20 years, it's going to be a really odd conversation. Right? So I'm not saying just bow down to your children and give them everything. Don't do that. That's actually very unhealthy. What I am saying is this, though. Somebody, something is always going to try and take your time. What we end up doing is because we ignore the things that are most constant so often is, well, we'll get to it tomorrow. Carmen has been asking me to take him fishing for 3 years. We went once, and it lasted about 2 minutes. But it's one of those things that I'm always like, man, I just can't take the time to do that. I can't not take the time to do that. Honestly, I can't not take the time to do that. Something's always going to try and take your time. Jesus was never too busy for the kids. I think we would do well to take that spirit and say, you know what? My kids' time is important. My time with them is important. We're not always going to have that time. So, a few things I want you to do off of this is, unless it's going to cause them physical harm or emotional harm, let your children figure out their own likes and dislikes. Some of you know, I joked about the Browns thing, and I'll continue with that. I would love to be able to celebrate, or maybe lament together the Browns' losses with my son. But if he wants to like the Steelers, that'll be awesome. We'll have great rivalry parties. It'll be great until he's like, hey, Dad, your team stinks. I know, they've been stinking since well before you were born. But that's the kind of stuff. My mom, again, I go back to my mom. She did really good with this. My mom was a racist. She admitted it. Later in life, she admitted it to me that, yeah, her parents taught her that way. She made a choice, though, when I was a kid, to let me figure out what I like and dislike. And I was so blessed, so fortunate to be put into a position where I got to struggle with that as a kid into my teenage years. I went there from 5th grade until I graduated. It was awesome. It was amazing, right? And it was only amazing because my mom, the worst, honestly, the closest my mom ever came to tilting my thinking on that, or at least trying to, was when I brought a girl home from school. I brought a girlfriend home. Okay? I was dating a black girl from school, and I didn't think anything of it. I never thought anything of it. I still don't. Right? But when I came home, there was a different feel. Right? It reached the limits of my mom's ability to cope. I wish it wasn't that way, but it was. And it was close to that time. But I was old enough then to just kick back and go, I think that's silly. Right? Because she'd given me over a decade of grace and of the ability to not do that. So, unless it's going to cause them physical or emotional harm, let them figure out their likes and dislikes and be happy with that. They're not us. They're not little us's. They're themselves. You do not like all the same things your parents like. And it would be silly if you did. This is not like a Stepford community. I know that's a dated reference, but if, what was it, back in the 80s or something, there was a series of movies called The Stepford Wives and Stepford Children. Basically, it was like all the kids and wives were controlled by all the husbands to be exactly what they wanted them to be. We are not that. We don't live in Isaac Asimov's robot world, okay? Let them figure it out. Hug your kids. Seems obvious, but give them big 6, 10-second hugs. Right? My kids love this, by the way. Well, Emmett doesn't. Emmett's all you try for about 2 seconds, and he's squirming out. He doesn't dig it, but hug your kids. Be intentional about touching your children. Okay? Hug them. Kiss them. Show them. Don't just tell them you love them. Show them that you love them. I promise you, it'll have a bigger impact than hearing one hug, 1 6-second hug will have a much bigger impact than 100 I love yous. We believe what people do, not what they say. And give them the first fruits of your time. Now, again, I said don't give them all your time. Please don't give them all of your time. But give them some good quality first fruits. And when I say first fruits, that's like we talk in the Bible. It's we give God the first fruits of whatever. It means the first part of. God gets it first, right? A lot of us want to give time to our kids like we save money, and that is pay all our bills. We put this and that away for that, and then whatever's left we save. Raise your hand if you almost never save with that method. Yeah, right? Because there's never anything left. There's always something going to suck away your time, suck away your money, right? So we have to, if we're going to save money, we have to, Dave Ramsey said, pay yourself first. That's kind of the mentality. Pay yourself first, and then, pay everybody else. And that is a great mentality to have with your kids. Pay your kids first. Pay your kids first. And then everybody else gets what's left. There's still going to be a lot left, by the way. But if you give your kids what's first, you won't be tired. You won't be angry. You won't be stressed out because I've had all this stuff to do this week. Right? If you go into it saying, I'm going to give my kid the first of my time. Man, I can't imagine how you could start off a day or a week or just a situation better than that. Right? And I can promise, let me tell you this. This one will be the hardest for me to do. It will be the hardest for me to do. So I understand if it's going to be difficult for you too. Some people think I only work an hour on Sunday. Some of you know that that's not true. Right? And that's just one thing. Then we have to deal with Angela's life and all the time commitments there and how that overlaps. And then there's this and that and the other. And then in the end, it's like, Carmen, go watch a video in your room while I sit here and just try and vegetate for about 10 minutes. He gets what's left over, and what's left over is always sucks. So maybe I flip that. Figure out what we're going to do first. I don't know. I think it's a better way to go. Imagine if the world interacted with children the way that Jesus did. Just imagine that. Imagine this church if we all did that. And I don't think let me be clear here. I don't think we're bad people. I don't think that any of us are trying to let life suck away our time. That we're trying to teach our kids prejudices. So I don't think we're intentionally doing these things to harm ourselves or our kids. But we do. We do. So imagine, though, just take a second and imagine what it would be like if the world's adults interacted with children the way that Jesus did. Man, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. That's built into that question I gave you earlier about the church being involved in Sable's life. That's baked into it. It's baked into it. Imagine that, and then do it. You have a perfect chance to start a kid off right. Wilson he's a lost cause. But you've got... See? Now you're paying attention. I'm not coming back there. He picks on me. Yeah, I see it. I see it. But seriously, you have the chance to start Sable off. I would love it if, when she's Wilson's age, she's never known anything but a loving community. Like, she wouldn't even know what an unloving community is like. Because she's been so steeped in this environment, right? Where we're all interacting with her like Jesus did. And by the way, you do not have to only give your kids the first fruits of time and energy and resources, stuff like that. All the kids in this church are your kids. Can I say that again? I need my amen, lady. All the kids in this church are your kids. Thank you. Seriously, keep that in mind. Pray with me. God, I pray that Jesus' example permeates our lives. So much so that we cannot help but respond and be more like him. Help us to do that. Help us to do that. Help us to do that. Amen. We're going to move into our time of communion now. This week for communion, it's awesome because it's World Communion Sunday in the Methodist Church, which means theoretically every Methodist church around the world is having communion today. And